and this is my colleague Hakeem Holmes, and we are sustainable ag specialists at the National Center for Appropriate Technology. And so today we're going to be discussing how you could integrate AI into your farm or into your agricultural practice, or even if you're working for a nonprofit. We'll discuss how you can integrate that into your work, and we're going to go from a larger scale all the way down to a smaller scale, and we're also going to give you the option to participate as well. And so, like I said, we're going to explore how AI can be applied in ag at different scales. We're going to discuss different technologies, applications like ChatGPT, and what it can do for you, given your own expertise as well. And we're going to highlight advanced precision ag techniques as well. So artificial intelligence is using computer-driven data to essentially pull information off of the internet, and it curates it in a very simple way for you to use. And it can extrapolate different data and scenarios for you, again, given the prompts.
All right. So again, I'm Akeem. Well, to introduce me, I'm Akeem Holmes. I'm from the self-proclaimed city of Southern Charm, Marietta, Florida. So if you heard of it, it's in the Panhandle of Florida, about an hour north of Panama City Beach, hour west of Tallahassee. But right now I reside in Tallahassee. So all right, let's go dive. And then I service with NCAT. I'm a sustainable expert, service Florida and Georgia. So for you all good people who may be in Georgia, I can give you a visit possibly, or I'll be the person that you'll connect with. And if you need technical assistance or any type of other assistance. Before we start, can you all hear me? Good, because I don't like to stand when I'm a pacer, so I can move around. So, all right, today we will be talking about, like Gabrielle kind of alluded to, artificial intelligence. So before we start, I like to kind of preface the conversation. I know AI, it's a very new thing, so there's a lot of different opinions about AI. Sometimes, from people who might be scared or, oh, it's going to take my job or take over. Throughout this conversation or this presentation today, just look at it as something that is almost an assistant to help you enhance what you're already doing and doing it better. So some of the things that AI does to help us, do our job better is basically acquires knowledge and skills from data or experience. So when you're using AI, the data is coming from somewhere. So it's not like it's not coming up with its own thoughts or whatnot. It's not Terminator. It's just somebody inputted data, is taking data from somewhere and using that data, compiling it to give you a response or an answer. So with that, reasoning, problem solving, perception, so understanding, interpreting sensory information, images and sounds. So we're gonna be talking about some of that a little bit, and then language understanding. So understanding inputs that you put in and giving you appropriate responses based on the language. So next slide. So my part of the presentation, we will be discussing a little bit about precision ag. So whenever I do presentations, I like to make sure we all working on the same definition. So what is precision ag? So we'll be talking about that and basically how drones are utilized in precision ag. And now that precision ag and AI is basically the brains behind precision ag. Maybe a low level AI, it may be a more higher level AI, but that computing in the background when it comes to, I see her looking over to my bad. When it comes to precision agriculture, that's basically artificial intelligence. All right. So we're working on the same definition right here. What is precision agriculture? Throughout this presentation, when we say precision agriculture, a farm management strategy that uses technology to improve crop yields and resource use. So basically, we're using technology to help us make smarter decisions in our farm management. So that is what precision agriculture is. Next slide, please.
I also want to say that if you contact us after the presentation, we'd be really happy to send out these PowerPoint slides, so you don't have to take vids of every slide.
Yeah, actually, yeah, that's why I got a little mic on. I'm recording my voice. So we're gonna put this on NCAT's YouTube page, so you all have access to this. So you're welcome. See, I'm thinking, boy. All right, so when we talk about precision agriculture, what are some of the tools that are utilized in precision agriculture? So crop monitoring systems, so different systems that monitor the crops, whether it's soil testers and whatnot, weather stations. So Weather stations are posted throughout the United States everywhere where it collects weather data. GPS guided machinery. So you can think about smart tractors, drones in a sense. That's also uses GPS technology. Farm management software. Gabriella will be going over that a little bit later on. Uh, Drones and aerial imagery. That's another precision agricultural tool that's used. And variable rate technology. So you think about variable rate technology, that is technology used. So if I want to, let's say, I don't try to convince people not to use, sprayers and whatever. Use whatever's best for your operation. So, but I will encourage you to use it wisely. So do not spray if you don't have to spray the whole field, spray it in the certain spots that actually need the attention. So variable rate technology helps you do that. So why do we use drones? I like using drones when it comes to precision ag because a lot of those technologies that we just mentioned before, it all comes in one package with the drone. So you got your smart crop monitoring sensors. So that picture on the top left, that's a multi-spectral drone. So it has different camera lenses that can get different information from the crops. You got your GPS guided variable rate application in that little spray drone. You got your GPS mapping software with this drone. So I mean, this controller. So utilizing drones, a lot of those precision agricultural tools are all combined in a nice sweet package. So I don't have to buy a whole bunch of different things. I made my investment in my drone, and I got a lot I can use with this one package. So that's why we'll be talking about drones. So before going forward, I mentioned on the last slide about multispectral imagery. What is multispectral imagery? So as human beings, we can only really see in red, blue, and green, RBG, combinations of that. But plants reflect infrared light. So with that multispectral imagery, it actually can see the infrared light being reflected from the plants to help monitor crop health. So if you look at this picture, the more infrared light that is reflected by the plant, the healthier the plant is. And as humans, we can't see that. So the less as you go down, the less infrared light that's reflected, the more stressed the plant is. And if you look at certain type of imagery, if it's no infrared, I mean, if it just, well, I'll show you when we get later to the slides, be a better uh, example. So you can check the slide. So how is that information used? So basically that multispectral data imagery is used to create what we call indexes. So indexes, usually the most common two is NDVI and NDRE. And it's basically a scale from -1 to +1 on the plant. It calculates the plant health and the amount of infrared light that's being reflected from the actual plant. So when you talk about NDVI, which is uh, the most common thing that's index that's used. It's reflecting the amount of green that is reflecting from the plant. So when you use NDVI, basically it helps you monitor your actual crop growth, how much yield you can get from a certain crop by determining how much green light that is reflected. All right, but if you're thinking about doing crop health analysis, so we'll talk about that a little bit more in depth, but crop health analysis, we use the scale NDRE. Again, it goes through that same -1 to +1 scale, but that NDRE really focuses on that red edge band. So it's the band of light between the red that's reflecting and the infrared. And you can get more precise crop health data from that information right there. So that if you're building a prescription map or whatnot to use on a field, you focus on NDRE. So let's get into the fun part. Utilizing drones in crop health monitoring workflow. So we're going to go through the workflow of actually using a drone to plan your mission, create your orthomosaic map. So basically, an orthomosaic map is the map that after you take your pictures, it pulls all the pictures together and creates like a Google map out of those pictures. It looks very nice. And then we'll use some go over the data analyzation. Okay, you got your orthomosaic map. Now let's create our indexes. So our NDVI, NDRE. Next slide. So first step, autonomous mission and image capture. So with your drones, so you keep everything consistent. You can take your drone and basically you pull up the address or the location that your field is at, and you draw a map around the area that you want to fly and the steps that you go into so the drone can just fly by itself and return back from where it took off from. So as a user, all the user error is out of it. So in this sense, when I encourage people, you use this drone, it's better to have on this drone right here at the top is a thing called RTK module. So it basically corrects the discrepancy between GPS and it kind of minimizes. So if you're uploading this information to a smart tractor or a drone, it'll be in the exact spot it needs to be when it's applying what it needs to apply. Next slide. So this is an example. Okay, we're playing the flight mission. So we create our field boundaries. That's the first step right there. So we fly. Okay, we create a polygon around the area that we want to fly over, and it measures all that, and it'll give you the amount of area that you'll be flying over. Next slide. And I know it might be a little bit small, but you choose your actual drone that you're using, your cameras that you want to use. So do that. You choose the height that you actually want to fly over your field. So if you think about big fields, think of this: the higher you fly, the less pictures you're going to take, but the less accurate the data is. So the lower you fly, the better the data, but you got to compensate for your environment. If you know it's trees and obstacles that you need to avoid, you pick a height that best works for your situation. If you got less than, I'll say 10 acres, just fly around between 200 and 250 feet. All right. And they'll tell you how fast the drone and whatnot is going. So basically, after this, you get to this stage. You got your drone outside, it's sitting down, you're outside your field, and it's going to tell you exactly the path that the drone is going to take, and it's going to take a bunch of pictures, how long it's going to take. So if you're using a multi-spectral camera, with that drone I showed you earlier, I don't want to say the brand or anything because I don't want to give self-promotion marketing, so they got to pay me for that. But basically, it has 5 different cameras. So think of, okay, it's taking 117 pictures, so it's going to be 117 snaps times 5. So when you upload your pictures, it's going to be a bunch of pictures. So, but it's going to take 3 minutes for this particular field. It'll take 3 minutes, about 4 minutes to finish that field. And I'm sorry I didn't convert that to imperial units, so acres. Next slide. So after you get done flying your mission, it flew its mission. This is the orthomosaic map that it creates. So it takes all those pictures that you took and creates a nice, pretty map. So if you look over here, this is the quote unquote regular Google satellite imagery. You can see how fuzzy this is. And this right here is your orthomosaic map, real pretty. If I zoom in, and this is what I should have went over that, but your ground sampling distance. If I can zoom in, and the farther I can zoom in to see like each individual pixel, that represents less than 2 centimeters on the actual ground. So you get very fine detail with this. Now, of course, if you zoom in and just see 1 pixel, you won't be able to see the plant. But at this height that I flew, I'll be actually able to zoom in and see certain imperfections on individual plants. So next slide. So after you get your orthomosaic map, what do you do again? You create more field boundaries. So you're telling the software which area of the fields to focus on. So this will be your field boundary, and these are what you call obstacles. So you use this information to tell if you're going to upload it to another drone or some type of smart tractor. Hey, you're going down the road, avoid these areas. And you're telling the software when it creates its indexes, don't focus on those areas. And then that one on the left right there, that's a surface map. So when you're flying your drone, it's creating a terrain, is doing terrain follow. So it's actually creating a surface map, and it's telling you your high areas of your field, your low areas of your field. So actually, I would do this before I even plant or set up an irrigation system, so you will know which way to run your irrigation, which areas of the field to be more prone to retaining water and whatnot. So that's a good tool to use too. Next slide. All right. So this is just an example of me zooming in and using a count function. So I could individually go through and highlight the plants I want to count, and it'll count how many plants that are actually in the field. So that's another tool which is powered by AI in a sense. All right, next slide. Yep. There we go. NDRE versus NDVI. So, man, the way the screen is definitely different, but the way the screen is, it almost looks the same. But the right, I believe, is on NDVI. If you look at this is your indexes. So basically, this is telling you what parts of the field are more healthy, which parts of the field are less healthy. If I look at it, it definitely, yeah, it looks different on here. But this is a little bit more green. So this is telling me that the plants are they're growing, they're tall. Then this is actually sweet corn. This growing is tall. It's it got some things going on, but that NDRE index it actually penetrates through the canopy layer of the corn, and it gets all the way to the bottom, to the ground. So it gives you a little bit better reading of actual crop health. So you will take this data right here and create a prescription crop map. So next slide. So, oh, I'm gonna skip the layer. So this is what right here is called creating an operational layer. So right now, I'm going through the field and I'm looking at different. I'm telling the software, hey, these are what the actual sweet corn looks like, and this is what I want you to pay attention to. And I tell it not what not to pay attention to. So I clicked on some weeds. Hey, count these. Look at these areas. Don't count these. And I'm going through and I'm clicking on some of the dirt patches. Hey, don't focus on this when you're doing your analyzation. You do that so it doesn't mess up your NDRE and your NDVI values. Because if you just everything within those boundaries, if you just focus on those, it's getting data from the weeds, it's giving data from the plants, the ground, and that's how it creates your average. But if you go through that salt process and tell it, okay, this is actually a plant, this is not a plant, it gives the software a little bit better data to work with. Next slide. So this is your operational layer. So this is right here. I was explaining earlier, you could better see it, but you can see this part of the field is doing well. This part of the field is doing a little bit worse. This part of the field is needs some help. But as you saw, if we looked earlier, if you just looked at the orthomosaic, everything was green. But this is actually giving that infrared imagery that we can't see with our eyes and telling you about the crop health data. So when I would take this information, right now I think I got it on a pound. So let's say we're doing a fertilizer spraying operation. You can take your smart tractor with an implement or now, when I say smart tractor, a thing with a isobus implement where it does variable rate spraying, and you can upload a prescription, this prescription, into that implement, into that tractor or into that drone, and it'll tell you, let's just say I'm flying in the field, okay, I need to spray this amount here, this amount here, this amount in the green. So you're not just going through the field spraying at one rate and wasting inputs. So that's the good thing about this. Next slide. So last part of the step, let's say that you planned on buying a drone and you just wanted to do some consultations with farmers and whatnot and fly their field. Well, this is part of the package that I would say you would give them. Okay, I went out there, I flew my drone, I got my data, I got my information. Now I'm creating a report of what's going on in the field. So this is basically an AI driven insight on based off the NDRE or the NDVI values that is analyzing with the field. So you are the only thing you need to tell the software is the date that you planted, and it's pulling information from the weather stations. Remember, everything's interconnected, and it's giving you a breakdown of okay, you planted it on this day. Based on these values, this might be wrong with the plants. This might be wrong with the plants. You might need to check with this. According to the weather has been this. It's been very dry. So I can tell that possibly it's an irrigation system not being used with these plants. So that gives you a breakdown. I can give you a summary breakdown of each index layer of what's going on with the plants to help you make better informed decisions. All right, almost done with my part. Quick recap. What is precision agriculture? Anybody want to say it? A farm management strategy that uses technology to improve crop yields. Why do we use drones? Because it's a device that integrates a lot of those different precision agricultural tools into one beautiful, easy to use package. So, and then when you're going through your collection phase, utilizing the drone, remember autonomous flight planning. And another reason to use autonomous flight planning is because once you create your field boundaries for the first time, you just keep on using that same flight plan over and over so it keeps your data consistent. So in reality, I would probably go out and fly over a field once or twice a week. I mean, once a week or twice every other week. Fly over the field, get my information. But you want to make sure that you're flying the exact same spot each and every time. You don't want to keep creating new field boundaries. So that's why you use your autonomous flight. And if you flew it by hand, course, you're going to be off a little bit. So use your autonomous flight planning and image capture. Create your orthomosaic map. So again, with the orthomosaic map, I didn't show everything you could do with it, but even if you just zoomed in certain areas and saw certain areas of field, if you fly low enough to the ground, you can get imperfections and whatnot of, okay, I actually see pest damage. So let me go look at this point in the field and see what's going on. And finally, using data analyzation, utilizing NDVI and NDRE. So these are the indexes that help you create your crop prescription plans. So I think that's it for me, and I'll pass it over to Gabrielle.
Nice. I think I can just change my slides since I'm a little less dynamic.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Well, good job, guys, making it through that, because I know that it's not applicable for everybody. It really depends on what scale you're working at. So if you're a large farmer with, primarily a monoculture, that definitely makes a lot of sense financially as well as for the technology. But here, I would love if you guys could scan this QR code, and we're going to come back to this. This is going to make a word cloud. And so we have a couple of suggestions right now, but for my part of the presentation, I want to show how AI can be more applicable to whatever you're working in. So if you're working in a community garden aspect, or maybe you want to have a farm stand and you want to know your cottage laws for your county, or you are a beginning farmer and you want to understand intercropping. There's so many different things that AI can help you with. So we're going to come back to this, but you can put it in, and then it'll generate some results. And at the end, we're going to try to do a live chat GPT session. So like I was saying, with the drones, that is a different scale. And so I'm going to speak on a smaller scale. And this is how I use it within my agricultural practice. I'm from Florida, but I am farming in Massachusetts. So I'm kind of bi-locational, I guess, if you will. And so there's some really interesting tools that you can use. So we're going to talk about IPM for a moment. And so with Google Lens, ChatGPT, or Plantix, if you're having a certain infestation and maybe you're a beginning farmer, or with climate change, there's newer pests and insects that are popping up, this can be a really interesting tool because you can snap a photo of it and it'll generate what the insect is. And then you can either use ChatGPT or some other tools that I'm going to talk about, like Plantit, for example, or Plantix, to come up with management strategies, whether that's creating inputs for pesticides, organic or not. Again, that's like the cool part about it. We can specify if we want to follow USDA organic regulations, or if you want to use a more conventional agricultural approach. It can also give you options for using companion plants. Yesterday, I gave a presentation about indigenous agriculture, and so there is the push-pull technology that comes from Africa, where you use desmodium, for example, to repel a crop, and then you use Napier grass to attract it away from your maize plants. So you can follow something like this, creating a push-pull system within your own garden, understanding what are companion plants for the crop that you're growing and what things you don't want to grow with it. And this can be really, ChatGPT at the basic level is free. Google Lens is free. And then if you want to get some beneficial insect kits, or however you decide to approach it, that management fee is as you choose to create it. So here I have a little video because I planted a lot of really nice Tuscan kale this summer, and I had a ton of insects on it. And so just for funsies, I snapped a pic of it. I wish I would have recorded it, but hindsight. And I put into ChatGPT, I have these critters that are making holes all over my cabbage. What is it? And so it came up with it. It is the invasive cabbage worm, or the cabbage moth. And then it suggests companion planting of marigolds or nasturtiums, mint and thyme with the essential oils that repel, or alliums, garlic, chives, and onions, which help repel as well. It gave organic methodologies for pest management, like neem oil, creating your own garlic or chili spray, or different bacteria that you could use as well as a spray, thinking like Korean natural farming or compost teas, as well as physical barriers like row covers, diatomaceous earth, and then some other tips. And then if you were really curious, you could break it down even more, and you could say, how exactly do I make that garlic chili spray? Or where can I find row covers, and what are the costs for 20 meters squared of my production site? So you can break it down even more. and have it create your system exactly as you need it. And then here, specifically for the Atlanta area, I was saying that I wanted to. Oh, it's the same one. Normally it doesn't play. Anyway, so we did, you can also use it for crop planning and seasonal scheduling tools. And so again, we're using ChatGPT, we're using the Plant app, or there's also the Seed to Spoon application. And so these are really interesting because you could specify, for example, the size of the space that you want to crop, the latitude and the longitude that you're in, or just put in your city. You could say make a specific planting schedule based on the first and last frost of the season, what plants you want to do. You could even do marketing tools. For example, in Fort Myers, Florida, where I'm from, what are the most popular things that sell at farmers markets? Can you look at data from X, Y, or Z to help me understand what sells? Or, for example, once I have my crop, can you tell me how to even get into the farmer's market in Lee County and who's in charge of it? It'll pop up the name of the person that you should contact, how much it would cost to enter that stuff. So here, in regards to crop planning and seasonal tool scheduling, we are using here just the Planted app. So I just did like a little screen recording. Whoop. I do have to go back. Can I go back?
It might not let you.
Ah, well, anyway, we're recording, so that's why we can't do it. But there is, like, on the Planted app, once you have the application open, it's really neat because you can go into the application and you can click that you wanted to add broccoli to your garden, and it'll tell you based on your zone, again, like all of the planting dates, what are the beneficial things to plant with it, what are the things that you shouldn't plant with it. For example, if you wanted to plant broccoli, you should intercrop it with any of the allium family crops. So anything garlic, chives, onions, things like that. But you should avoid planting it with other brassicas or cruciferous vegetables. So you don't want to plant broccoli with cabbage or kale. So these are kind of things that will help you if you're a newer farmer, if you're working in a community garden setting where ag maybe isn't like your specific forte. So here we have another prompt kind of based on what we talked about here. And so I'm saying that I have a 4x8 raised bed in Atlanta, and I want to maximize my spring harvest using intercropping. Can you suggest a planting schedule using Swiss chard, radishes, and cilantro with proper spacing and succession planting? And I also specified, can you show me a simple schematic for this idea? So it goes ahead and it analyzes it, and then it comes up with the planting schedule for you. It talks about spacing for each crop. It gives you the planting schedule that you would want to direct seed the radishes, and you would want to come in with the card and plant that, and how you could manage that. And then it gave a really simple schematic. And of course, there's dozens of ways that you could make a planting pattern within your garden. It really depends on the tools that you're using, the scale that you're at. So this is kind of where we talk about in our organization appropriate technology. Because if you are a rancher growing corn or hay for your animals, then maybe having, a $1,300 drone is appropriate technology for you because it's going to help you optimize. If you're a small gardener, then this can be an appropriate technology to help you maximize efficiency and understand what tools you should be using and just play around with it as well. You can say, create something different, and it'll keep popping up and generating different results. So this is the schematic enlarged that it did give us. And so the green dots are the Swiss chard, the red dots are the radishes, and then the blue dots on the perimeter are cilantro. Of course, you could add the cilantro as rows into it. It's not perfect, but just gives you a generalized idea of the spacing and the timing. Something interesting as well that could be really useful is fertilizer dosing and compost management. So for this, I'm just using ChatGPT, and this is a real world scenario where I did have a client, and he bought a old pecan orchard, and he wanted to change it up a little bit. So he sent me 7 soil samples. This is just sample number 2, so one of them. But for your own use, you could do this as well. If your extension agent isn't like on it, they are very busy, or if you can't get a hold of us, you can do this yourself. So here we have one sample, and I go ahead and I say, I want to grow strawberries in Ocala, Florida. Can you help me analyze sample number 2? Can you create a dosing schedule for every acre that aligns with USD organic regulations? And can you do sourcing and costs as well? So this is getting like super duper nitty gritty, but like if you can at least get a head start, because our lives are hard enough, I think, this will just give you an idea. So I go ahead and I upload the PDF document into it. It analyzes it for me. And then it's going to go up and come with suggestions. So it's saying that I need to dose with um, phosphorus, potassium, and nitrogen. I need to add an inch of well composted manure per acre. My micronutrients are on the lower side. So then it gives you the timing if you want to put in your strawberries. It says that you need to amend your soil 3 to 4 months prior to even adding the strawberries, and per plant, how much of each you would need. And so I think that that's really interesting. And then you can also say, if I'm in wherever you're from, what are the average costs of these? So here it says that um, per acre, it would be about 1,600 to completely amend your farm, for example. So I think that these are really neat tools. I think that this is really empowering depending on whatever scale you're at. And then if we want to talk about irrigation, I think that the interesting thing with AI is that you can mix and match what technologies you decide to use. So, for example, combining things and then also having some background knowledge to prompt things. Like I was when you're using chat gpt, for example, you can't just willy-nilly ask a question. It helps the more specific you can be with your location, with what exactly you want to crop, with your soil type, or if you have a soil test, or even, for example, we'll get into it a little bit later, but writing documents or who to contact, these different things. So if we're talking about smart irrigation, here we're using a blue mat moisture meter. And so this is just something that you could use in field, for example, or if you had a container garden, you can put that in, and it gives real-time data about your soil moisture. So then if you go ahead and you combine that, if you're on a larger scale, with a weather station, which is going to connect to NOAA and your area and give you real-time information about, did it rain? What is the weather? Are there storms coming? It can really help predict a lot of different things. So like that, you're not wasting money over irrigating or under irrigating, because if it rains and you just have an automatic system, you risk losing your crop if you're over irrigating as well, and the inverse as well if it's too dry and you didn't have your program set up like that. And then there's also the Rachio auto irrigation. So these three things in conjunction, you set them up together, and they'll give you real-time data about how to adjust your irrigation, and it'll do it for you. So this isn't necessary, especially if you live near your farm. But imagine that many farmers can only go to their farm a couple times a week, because most farmers actually have second jobs. So this could be an interesting technology and a way to utilize agriculture and AI. So in regards to this, it can help with water efficiency, labor savings, and sustainability. So some other really interesting things that you can use it for would be, let's say you found a grant from SARE and you want to apply for the grant for your farm, or you want to apply for an NRCS project. It can help you create an application. You can upload the PDF directly into you can upload the RFP, the request for proposal, directly into it, and you can specify exactly what you want to use. You could attach articles from your region if you are a community garden that's serving primarily BIPOC farmers and you want to use stats about the poverty level in your area. It can really help you generate a really fantastic outline of how to write these things. And then also you can use it for budget planning. So you could, if you are good at budget keeping yourself, you can upload that Excel form or however you do your record keeping, and you could say, where am I losing money? What is making me the most money? It doesn't make sense to even have carrots versus a good salad. Like, help me optimize my production. So that can be something that's really interesting. Like I was saying here, uh, I want to grow tomatoes and sell them at the farmer's market. How do I best price them per pound? And so it's giving you, it's analyzing with the inputs that you give, because you want to know how much labor am I spending, how many inputs and the cost of inputs am I putting into these tomatoes, then how much do I sell them for? And it'll be like, you should probably raise it by 10 cents if you really want to make a profit compared to market prices. So these are some really cool tools. And then, like I said, farmers finances, guidance on grants, loans. You could type in your area, what are the best rates on loans, and can you break down based on my situation what would make the most sense? And again, here I was just putting in a scenario. Do I want to grow microgreens or do I want to grow carrots? And then it's breaking down all of the different scenarios. And again, you can break that down a little bit more. I know they're completely different things in completely different settings, but it was just an idea. And as well as for tax reasons, I know it's tax season, so this might be pretty apropos for the moment, but it can help you understand tax compliances for your area. You could upload your documents, and it could tell you how much you should be setting aside if you are an entrepreneur, and that you should be saving 20% of your income to pay tax for tax season. There's many different things that you can use it for. It can also help you understand your cash flow. You could help it create an outline if you wanted to host a workshop. So there's so many different things. I think it can be really interesting. I had it just come up with this organic regulation checklist if you wanted to try to pursue organic regulations, just different things that you need to think about. The checklist is pretty long, but it's over the course of 3 years normally if you're going from conventional to organic. Oh, and that's it. I'll go back to the word cloud and then we could do a demo as well. But do we have any questions at the moment?